This is three random records I picked. If I picked one I didn't want to talk about, I did put it back so it's not totally blind, but three fairly random records that really have nothing to do with one another. First one I want to talk about is The Godfather's Birth, School, Work, Death. If you've heard the song, you remember the song. I don't think it's probably something you forget. Very cool song, especially when you're 17, 16, 17. This comes on 120 minutes and you're introduced to all these bands. Yeah, they're from the UK. They kind of have that punk sound, kind of a carryover, very guitar driven. 1988, and you wouldn't know it. I mean, there's none of the kind of 80s production values really going on in here. And at the time, I loved Birth, School, Work, Death, the song. And they had a new album, though, at the time, I think, that I heard it, or shortly after, which was called More Songs About Love and Hate, which I didn't know of Leonard Cohen's songs about love and hate at that time, but I'm sure it was a little nod to it. And the single off that was She Gives Me Love, which I liked. I mean, I liked enough to buy the new record, but I remember thinking, damn, why didn't I get Birth, School, Work, Death instead? Well, I finally got it like a year or two ago. Picked it up for $5 at a local record store, which I mean, it's increasingly harder to get any kind of used record for $5. And I love this thing. It sounds great. It absolutely smokes on vinyl. It's an edgy guitar record. The voice sounds great. The guitar works great. Like I said, there's not the 80s production. I expected to play one song, the title song, the first song, and kind of, put something else on, but absolutely really enjoy listening to it. And I don't know it like the back of my hand. I'm not going to probably quote too many songs to you, if any, other than that title song, but I did enjoy it, and it's a fun record. I really enjoyed listening to it a couple years ago. I listened to it about 4 months ago too, and now that I picked it out, I might put it on the turntable again. Godfather's Birth, School, Work, Death. Next album, really pretty unrelated. High on Tulsi Heat. This is John Moreland. Now, if you're into alternative music, or not alternative, you're into alt country music or Americana, you participated in that tag that was going on, you should know about John Moreland. I kind of regret not talking about John Moreland. To be honest, when we're doing that tag, I grabbed like a bunch of cool Americana albums that I thought would be great to talk about, and then I read the questions, and so many of them didn't pertain to the records that I chose, so I ended up not talking about them. So hey, it's a great time to talk about John Moreland. High on Tulsi Heat. How do I know John Moreland? How did I get turned on to John Moreland? I guess a lot of people did through Sons of Anarchy. He did the soundtrack, or he not the soundtrack, but he was involved in writing several songs that were used in the show. That's not what turned me on to him, although I did watch that show at some point. What turned me on to John Moreland is when I saw Yo La Tengo in Las Vegas at a really small place. I've talked about Vegas before. Those of you that subscribe to this channel probably know that, or remember that. But one of the positives of living there is if a band did come through that you really wanted to see, chances are they played a very small place, and Yo La Tengo did that. And I remember, being there with somebody, and we were really looking forward to Yo La Tengo, and I think we were talking, probably having a couple of drinks, and all of a sudden I hear this music, this guy with this voice, just beaming kind of voice, low, earthy, commanding, and I don't know if I even finished my sentence or let her keep talking and turned away. I don't remember. All I know is that I dropped everything and went and stood in front of that guy and did not move until his set ended. I was completely blown away by this guy. Huge man. I mean, very commanding presence in his voice, but commanding presence physically too. And just this little guitar playing this guitar acoustic, and these songs were just so good, and really, like I said, the storytelling just really brought me in. I mean, I was feeling at the time kind of confused. I was looking for some sort of place to be. Moved around quite a bit. I'd been in San Francisco for about a year and a half, and then I moved to Vegas, and I did not like it. And his songs about wondering what home even meant anymore were really, really resonated with me. And it was incredibly powerful. I picked up the album at the show, and the album did not disappoint. I think most of the set must have been from the record. I've tried to get into his other records, and I like them quite a bit. Um, but I haven't been able to get into them as much as I've gotten into High on Tulsi Heat. John Moreland, highly, highly recommend this record, or any John Moreland. Other people might have other favorite John Moreland records, but this one came out I think in 2016 and 2015 maybe. It might have been 2015, but yeah, incredible record, incredible talent. And then the third record I want to show, I guess I'm kind of flying through this. Maybe it'll be a pretty quick video. But the third one I want to show, or I picked, my third Rando record, is by a guy that needs no introduction. He has such classic records as Bringing It All Back Home and Highway 61 and the Freewheelin' with his name at the end of it, and an album called The Times They Are Changin'. And his most recent album was Studio of New Material, Rough and Rowdy Ways, is absolutely incredible. I'm talking about Bob Dylan. This album, I haven't listened to much early Dylan lately. I like the newer stuff. I mean, of course, for years, I was like, he's never going to touch that 60s stuff. And that was canon. I mean, it still is. But I find myself, I don't know, reaching for modern Bob most of the time when I want to listen to Dylan. But pick this one out at random. I do have a story around it, however loosely tied it is to it. But yeah, this is another side of Bob Dylan. This came out in, I think, 64. I believe it was recorded like in one day. He's just going through his new songs. Definitely getting a little bit more into personal songs, I guess, rather than political. I mean, there's a couple, like Chimes of Freedom is on here. But there's also songs like It Ain't Me, Babe, that Johnny Cash would cover about a year later. And songs like All I Really Want to Do. And what else we got on here? My Back Pages, which of course the Byrds did at some point, and Ballad in Plain D, which a lot of people think is the most bitter Dylan song. Clearly he had a lot on his mind when he was recording another side of Bob Dylan. I like it. I like it a lot. If you want to look at his classic period, it's one that's oftentimes overlooked. I mean, people will mention Freewheelin' or Times They Are Changin', of course, Highway 61, Blonde on Blonde, Bringing It All Back Home. And sometimes another side of Bob Dylan, this particular side of Bob Dylan, or two sides of Bob Dylan, get a little neglected. But I don't feel too sorry for Bob. He sold a lot of records, and one of his fans that I saw live in 2002 in Madison, Wisconsin, played one of his songs at his show. Okay, so that's my story tie-in. But the cool part about this is I met this guy outside of his tour bus after the show. He had the door open, and you could just essentially walk up a couple stairs and talk to him. And it was none other than Paul Westerberg. And the connection is that, yeah, he had played All I Really Want to Do Is Baby Be Friends With You. He played that at the show that I saw in Madison. I'd also been watching, Westerberg had kind of gone into semi-retirement or wasn't really doing much for few years before before Stereo Mono came out. And he started going and playing all these open mics at open mics in stores at record stores. And I was trading tapes or CDs with people. You supply the postage, they send you a CD, and then you just keep kind of doing that. There's like a chain where you're sharing this music and pre-internet, I guess, widespread distribution of music online. But it was great. I have all these in stores of Westerberg. And he did some Dylan songs, including this one. I think he also might have done It Ain't Me, Babe, or one of the other songs on this record as well. Anyway, met him on the tour bus, told him how much he meant to me, told him how much his music meant to me, how it has been like with me throughout my whole life, or at least from the teenage years on. And he said to me, caught him on a good day, "You have no idea how much that means to me." And then he signed my CD of Stereo Mono. And yeah, Yeah, I thought that was really cool. And I know he can be kind of a difficult one at times. But that's my connection, Paul Westerberg, to another side of Bob Dylan. And boy, we've seen a lot of sides of Bob Dylan, haven't we? Um, yeah, he's still at it. He's still at it. And he's still quite good. I saw him about a year ago. Yeah, a year ago? Was it a year ago? Year or two ago. Maybe it is coming up on 2 years. And it was great. He did. Who else? Who else? Who else? Stones, any of these bands that have been around forever. Who else would do their new album in its entirety and then throw in like three other songs that weren't really hits? He did it, and we loved it. And yeah, Bob Dylan. Those are my three randos. Talk to you soon.